Hello guys, my name is SVB and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to have our next installment in Lessons from Overwatch League. Now in this video I'm going to follow up on something I mentioned in the previous video, because if you remember, last time I talked about aggressive defense and why it's so good even when you're at an ult disadvantage. But I did mention that there is one team that's particularly good in Overwatch League at playing passively and simply reacting to what the enemy does, and that's the New York Excelsior. So today I'm going to break down some plays from the New York Excel, and I'm going to show you guys why they play passively, why it's so difficult, and why they're really the only team in Overwatch League who like to play this way successfully. So let's get into it guys. So here we are in map 3 of New York Excelsior versus Boston Uprising. As you can see, Boston have already capped point A, and they're rushing towards point B for a quick snowball capture. Now looking at the ult banks, you can see that Boston have quite the advantage. They have not only their Graviton, but also the Diva Bomb up, meaning they have a deadly combo ready to potentially wipe the New York Excelsior. On the flip side, New York only have Jonax Transcendence, which means that they don't have a lot to work with. Now I'm going to let this fight play out and you guys are going to see that New York still come out on top despite the salt advantage, and then I'll talk through why that happens.
Hey man, yeah, left for this take, and guess what? It's a grab self-destruct that are ready to go for them.
They've got the combo. Can they execute it properly though? That's the question. Can't get that grab eaten. Axiom looking for it. You know that Nenne's waiting, man. He's got that right click, that defensive matrix ready to go. When that ultimate comes in, we'll see, he's waiting. He's got his eye on Meko, as you can see right there. Boston coming in with the ultimates. Axiom still waiting for the chance to chop to grab. It goes up. There's the ultimate going in, self-destruct. Can they block it? Fusion's tried to go in with the charge to deny the shield, but it didn't work out. He paid for it with his life, and now New York with a chance to come back in this fight.
And that's another time where New York just sat back and waited for the Boston Uprising to get over eager.
So as you heard Monty say on commentary, New York Excelsior play that fight incredibly patiently, and they just wait for Boston to overcommit, and then they punish that overcommitment. And before I get into breaking down that fight, I just want you to note that it took almost a minute for that fight to go from start to finish. That's how passive New York were playing. That's how patient they were. Because Boston came in with around 5.5 minutes, and now when they're being wiped out, they're almost down to 4.5 minutes. So in Overwatch League terms, that is a long time. So New York were really happy to let this fight draw out, because they knew they weren't going to be the ones to make a mistake. They knew that they could just outplay Boston if they let them get overeager, let them overcommit. So now let's talk through what happened. So if we go back to the starting position here, Boston want to use this left-hand side to come through. Now quite a lot of teams would make it very difficult for someone to come through this narrow chokeway. They'd probably apply a lot of pressure, put a lot of damage down, and just make sure that they don't get to come in for free. But of course, that requires aggression, and aggression comes with risk. New York Excelsior much prefer playing the defensive style because they're supremely confident in their ability to make the right decision and make the right reaction to everything that the opponent does. So what you'll notice already here is how spread out they are positioning wise. And look how far back Mano is. He's practically inviting Boston to come in. He could be so much further up, but he's back here because he's quite happy for Boston to come through. New York are quite happy for Boston to be the ones to engage, because their plan is simply to read what Boston are going to do and shut it down. So the reason that New York are so spread out is probably because they know exactly what Boston have. Overwatch League teams are obviously very good at counting ults, so guaranteed New York know right now that Boston have this Graviton, and they probably know that Note has a self-destruct combo waiting to go. So New York's plan for the initial phase is just to make sure Axiom cannot get any good value out of this Graviton, and that's why all the members are split apart now. There's such a gap between all these members. At any point right now, none of them could be grabbed in more than a pair of 2 maximum. So the key to playing passively and playing defensively is recognizing your opponent's win condition and shutting it down. So as I let this fight play out a little bit, we'll actually get to see Axiom's perspective, and you'll see how long he takes to try and find a grab, because if I keep pausing at any moment, you'll see how difficult it is. At this angle, you can see he could launch the Graviton at Mano, possibly, and that's it, a solo grab on Mano. Libero maybe, but again, a solo grab there. He could try launching it in Meko, but that's very far away, and is a good chance that Meko reacts and eats his Graviton. So Axiom has no good angle, and that's going to be a consistent theme for the rest of this fight. As you can see, as he's looking. New York, meanwhile, are just so happy to wait. Look how spread out they are still. Nenne's all the way over here, and Mano's over here. There's a whole points gap between them. And ordinarily, that might be bad. You might say that they're split apart and they're out of position. But what New York do is they trust each other immensely to always do the right thing. They trust that even though they're split apart, should one of them get in trouble, they will collapse together. But for the time being, they're able to stay this far apart because they don't want Axiom to get a good grab off, and they recognize what Boston want to do. And you can see this frustrates Boston. They're not really sure what to do. They're waiting for Axiom to hit the go button, and that's why they're playing so passively themselves. They're just waiting. They're waiting for Axiom to do something. Finally, Axiom drops the grab, and you'll actually notice that at this point, it's a solo grab. The only person who actually gets caught in it is Libero. Mano is over here. Anemo is on top of this space truck thing, whatever you want to call it. And so is Nenne. Meko is out of range. And Jonak over here is tucked away nicely. And you're going to see actually two members of New York Excelsior are going to voluntarily jump into the grab. And Jonak is going to voluntarily commit his Transcendence to keep Libero alive. So as you can see that there, Jonak pops the Transcendence. Now Mano is going to follow in and put his shield up. So New York waited out that entire moment. And even though they let Boston engage, they were the ones in control for that entire time. They controlled the entire tempo. And now they've got the Graviton on their own terms. Now what you're going to see is Note throws the self-destruct. And Fusions goes to pin Mano away to try and land a big self-destruct. But because the grab didn't catch the right targets, it's very unlikely that the self-destruct is going to get any value. Because Jonak is currently invincible, Libero has a personal shield, and Mano has a shield. Now even if we charge Mano away, it's still unlikely that any of these characters are going to die, except for maybe Mano, who's mid-pin animation. But watch how New York reacts. So you're going to see here Nenne pops his personal bubble, and now he's going to walk in front of this Diva Bomb, and in a combination with Libero's shield, Nenne's personal bubble is going to block this Diva Bomb entirely. So as we watch it play out, there. Nobody dies. All that happens is Jonak gets a little bit of a jump pack into the air. Mano, meanwhile, also received a friendly bubble from Nenne, meaning he's taken no damage from Fusion's pin. And now, as a result of desperately needing to make a play, Fusion has isolated himself deep in the New York backline. You can see here already, all the New York players are ready to turn and collapse on Fusions. So he's going to get isolated. He's going to get focused down, and by the time AimGod actually commits his Transcendence to try and save him, it's too late. So essentially what you can say there is that New York baited Fusions and the Boston Uprising into a trap.
It's a trap!
Because they knew that whatever Boston do, they could respond correctly. And because they're so well coordinated, because they're all on the same page, they're able to react together, they're able to focus the target down together, they've got each other's back, they're able to keep each other alive, and now they can win the fight. Boston recognizing that without their main tank and main playmaker, they have to back up, but Axiom is not going to get out. He gets stunned up, he gets killed, and that's an easy fight win for New York Excelsior. Now to illustrate this point about how well coordinated New York Excelsior are and how much they trust each other, I'm going to show you a clip from a different game. This one is between New York and Houston Outlaws, and it's map 1 on Nepal. Now you can see here as I pause the score screen, Houston Outlaws have 90% of the point, and they're essentially one fight win away from taking this round. Looking at the ult banks, there's not really a significant ult online. Of course, New York have their tank ults, but these are not necessarily ults that will win fights on their own. Not only that, they're actually going to go swap Nenne off McCree and onto Zarya in a second. Houston Outlaws did the same thing, swapping Dante off Sombra and onto Zarya, but they have the luxury of being able to do that because they have point control. New York, on the other hand, are actually struggling to even touch the point because they're all just at spawn right now. So they're under tremendous amount of mental pressure and a lot of time pressure. And I'm going to let this fight play out so you guys can see how it goes. And I'm going to talk through how New York are able to win this one.
Primal Rage, they don't have Deadeye. Nenne's actually going to swap over to Zarya. They want to win a longer fight here, build up those support ultimates. Easier said than done. Here's the tag coming through from Mano.
Pushes their way in, Mano, dangerously low, pushes his way back around the corner. Jonak is well tagged up into that back line, needs to stay safe. Primal Rage is going to be coming up from Mano off screen. Shattered nearly there from Muma. Dante getting tagged, New York onto the point, get the flip at 99%, Dante goes down. Houston Outlaws likely just gonna peel back, try.
So as the fight gets ready to go, you can see here Mano mid-jump, trying to hurry his way on the point. So he's been sent forward to tag the point. Now the rest of the New York Excelsior, I'm going to pause in a second. So by the time Mano actually touches point, the rest of the New York Excelsior are very, very far back. Nenne actually at this point is somewhere around here. So he's only halfway back from spawn. So Mano knows the reinforcements are going to take a while to come. And quite a lot of players would have committed their Winston jump here and then probably prop Primal Rage and then just try to stall as best they could. They'd have probably jumped in the enemy backline, got focused down because it would have been a 5-on-1 or a 6-on-1, and Mano's Primal Rage would have probably gone entirely to waste and just fed ult charge. But Mano trusts his teammates so much that he's happy to not even commit the Primal Rage. He just tags point, then he runs back because he knows that Meko is right here, and then Meko comes in and tags point. Now from this point on, I want to focus on two players specifically. That's Mano and Nenne. So I'm going to talk through Mano's perspective first, and then we'll see how he enables Nenne to dominate the fight. So at this point, Nenne is actually still so far away. He's not even near point yet. Mano, just a second ago, jumped off screen onto the high ground. So he's gearing up to make a play and make some space for his team. Now, a lot of this happens off screen, so I just want you to note what happens to Mano's character bar here. So he's jumped to the high ground. Now, essentially what he's trying to do is get into the Houston backline. So now you'll notice that he's starting to lose HP. And that's because at this very moment, he's fighting Raucous and Boink on his own. And you can actually see here that Spree has now turned his attention, and Jake will in a second as well, because these two have realized that their backline is in trouble. Dante and Muma, meanwhile, have their attention split. They're still looking at the front line. They're not going to all turn and deal with Mano. So as you can see, Mano now commits his Primal Rage, and now he's just going to start juggling the backline of the Houston Outlaws. He's just going to start wreaking havoc, causing a nuisance. And now you see him jump back onto point, and now he's going to drive forwards and keep knocking the Houston Outlaws back. But you can already see how much space he's created. Because Muma and Dante are without their back line, they're forced to back off the point even without actually having a proper fight. Because Mano is able to use his Primal Rage to cause so much disruption, and he's going to keep doing the same now. So you can see he keeps bashing people around. Now he goes to isolate Raucous. So he pushes the enemy Zenyatta into a corner. And again, look how scattered the Houston Outlaws are compared to the NYXL. We have Jake here, Raucous here, Spree here, Muma over here, and Boink somewhere around here. And Dante's obviously dead. So you can see and compare that to the New York Excelsior, who are basically all in one frame. So you can see when I talk about making space, so you can see how much space Mano makes for his team by not only disrupting the Houston Outlaws, but also isolating their backline and separating them from their front line. So that space obviously allows for a quick fight wipe. But now we're going to go back and look at how Nenne is able to dominate his way through the fight. So again, just to point out that Nenne is so far back, and he's chosen to swap off McCree for Zarya because he trusts his teammates so much that he knows that even if he's a little bit late to the fight, it won't matter. He realizes that his value is more as a part of the team than just as a McCree on his own trying to get some frags. So again, Mano shows great restraint, doesn't pop the Primal Rage, Meko tags. So now Mano goes up to set his play, and Nenne now comes on to point. So already on his way through, he took some damage and he's charged himself to 40 energy. Now he comes on to point, and he gets himself another 40 energy with his self bubble. Now he's 80 energy. Now you can see how oppressive his shield looks already. At this point, note that Nenne has 10% ult charge and Dante has 11% ult charge. But because of the space that Mano is making, Nenne is able to just assert himself on this fight. He's able to bully Dante out. And now you'll notice that he's just gone off screen. So what Nenne is about to do is he's about to come around the side, and he's now going to hunt for this kill on Dante. He's going to isolate his enemy number and take him out. And the reason he can do this is because he knows that Mano is there to make space for him. He knows that he can trust Mano to take attention away from him and allow that space for him to be the playmaker. Now, a lot of other players might have just stayed on point because, remember, it's 99%, and the panic of we need to flip the point might affect the decision making of a lot of players, even pro, and most definitely in your ladder games. But again, trust and teamwork. These are the two T's upon which a solid Overwatch team is built. So Nenne knows that he's allowed to go and do this. He's allowed to go on this flank. And now you can see on the side, he's gone and taken out Dante by himself. And if you follow any of the statistics of Overwatch League, Zarya dying first is the worst thing that can happen for a team in the GOATS meta. So from this point on, it's just easy wipe from New Excelsior. Now Nenne returns. Now he's able to beam people down. And look, by the end of the fight, look at the difference between Nenne's ult charge and Dante's ult charge. Remember that they both started at 0%, and if anything, Dante has the advantage of defending Zarya. But through a combination of space making and inherent trust that their teammates will do the right thing, New York Excelsior are able to win this fight so easily. Now at this point you might ask, SVB, that's all well and good, but what does any of this actually mean? What is the actual lesson from all this? Is it just that New York Excelsior are really good? Is it that you're a New York Excelsior fanboy? And the answer is, well, first of all, I'm not even particularly a fan per se of the New York Excelsior. I'm a fan of Overwatch, and anybody who's a fan of Overwatch should be able to appreciate when a great team plays so well. The way that New York do, the way that the Titans do, the way that the Shock do, for example. But the lesson to be learned here is that obviously in your ladder games or even in your organized scrim and pug games, it would be impossible for you to achieve this level of coordination and this level of teamwork. But there are two lessons to be taken away from this. First, play to your strengths. The New York Excelsior are a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what to do in every scenario that comes their way, and 9 out of 10 times they know the correct way to respond. So rather than try and be aggressive, rather than try to make flashy plays, they use their superior game sense to just wait and exploit mistakes in the enemy's play. In the case of the Boston Uprising, they were able to exploit Boston's over-eagerness and also force them into making a bad play. In the case of the Outlaws, they're able to use Mano to exploit the poor coordination between the Outlaws and then pick off these isolated targets one by one. Now the second lesson here, and this is more of an individual thing, is that you should learn to be the trustworthy teammate in your games. Learn to be the reliable person that when they say they're going to do something, they do it and they achieve it. So for example, in this scenario here, Mano is obviously coordinated with his team that he's going to be the one who's going to jump on point, he's going to be the one who touches. His teammates now know that they can trust Mano, that when he says, I'll touch point, don't worry, he'll do what he says. And that allows for great mental relief, because obviously if this was one of your ladder games, at 99% people would be panicking and rushing to get on point. And it's quite likely that you see teams just run around in a scattered manner, everybody desperate to throw themselves on point. And that leads to mistakes, obviously that leads to bad positioning, and that leads to you getting easily picked off. But if you can show composure and if you can allow your team that time to take their position properly, to get set up properly, then you increase the likelihood that you're going to win that fight for your team. So when you get into your games, show your team that you can be reliable and try to identify reliable teammates on your team. Because even 1 or 2 players building a relationship in a game is going to be enough to make a difference in a lobby full of 12 scattered players. So go in and make those callouts, let your team know, guys, I'll deal with XYZ problem. I'll be the one who touches point, don't worry, you guys take your time. Because when you're able to be a reliable teammate, when you're able to get them to trust you, you can achieve some pretty awesome things when it comes to Overwatch. So that's all I got for today, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope if nothing else you were able to take a little bit of inspiration for the games that you'll play when you're out on ladder, or when you're out playing it in some organized scrim fashion. Because even if you're queuing up with just 2 or 3 friends, if you can learn to trust each other and if you can learn to build a nice coordination, you can actually achieve so much more. Because in most games, players overcompensate and do things that they don't need to do because they feel like they have to cover their teammates, and because they feel like fundamentally their teammates are more likely to mess up than they are to help you. But if you know that XYZ person is always going to be a help to you, is always going to have your back, then you can relax and do so much more while you're all pushing for that same goal. So if you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe. It really does help. And as always, big shout out to my patrons and my new top patrons, Rax and Nagisa Tara, who are all awesome enough to support me. And I'll be back before you know it with another video. See you guys soon.